되게 광팬이라는 점을 말씀드리고 싶습니다. 1년 전에 여기 오셨을 때도 같이 강연들을 왔었고 그때 찍은 사진이 지금 제 카톡 프사로 1년째 있습니다. 개혁신당 당연히 당원이고요. 그때 비슷한 질문을 드렸는데 그 아까 그 두 개의 팩션이 있다고 얘기하셨잖아요. 그 산업화랑 민주화 세대. 근데 이 사람들이 우리를 굉장히 아웃넘버 한다는 게 큰 문제이지 않습니까? 근데 그때 제가 그래서 근데 이렇게 프레싱한 아젠다들을 얘기했을 때 별로 가성비가 안 먹힐 것 같다 말씀드렸는데 그때 이제 설득하면 된다. 그리고 안 되면 이준석 뽑으라고 해라 이렇게 말씀하셨던 것 같습니다. 근데 이제 당연히 할머니들과 얘기를 해보셨겠지만 이분들 진짜로 이재명이 간첩이라고 생각하시는 분들도 계시거든요. 유튜브 하도 많이 봐서. 그래서 저는 그때도 그렇지만 지금도 이게 진짜 토론의 영역으로 되는 것인가 하고 회의감이 들 때가 많이 있습니다. 그리고 이제 70대, 80대 분들이 돌아가시면 그때 이제 표파워가 지금 민주당 골수 지지층들이 엄청나게 강해질 거기 때문에 그리고 또 그들이 이제 70대가 되면은 토론으로 설득하기 쉽지 않을 거라고 생각하기 때문에 혹시나 좀 더 프랙티컬한 어떤 구상이 있으신지 어떻게 하면 좋을지 질문을 다시 드리고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
So the question was about our in our political sphere, the older generations outnumber us. So what's our practical way to resolve this issue? Then I would say, well, if you look at the past 3 elections, namely the presidential election, the regional election, and the recent general election, well, things have changed a little because the Korean political sphere now acknowledges the fact that the people in their 20s and 30s are the swing generations. Those are the people who decide who wins the election, which faction wins the election, because I remember how in the year 2022, when there was this presidential election, earning the support from the younger generation was so big back then, and they were coming up with these kind of policies and ideas to appease the younger generation. And now, so if you look back in the year 2004, when President Roh Moo-hyun ran for presidency, and in year 1998, when President Kim Dae-jung ran for presidency, back then it was the Chungcheong provinces which were known to be the swing states. So all the presidential candidates actually ran to appease the people of Chungcheong provinces to win the presidential election. So back in year 1998, so President Kim Dae-jung decided to join forces with the prominent figure in Chungcheong province, Kim Jong-pil, to join forces and win the presidential election, so-called the DJP alliance. And in year 2002, when President Roh Moo-hyun ran for presidency, he decided that he gained the support from the guys in Chungcheong province, and he decided that he's going to move the capital to Sejong City. So, so back then, all the politicians in Korea knew that they had to earn support from Chungcheong province to win a presidency or win any election. Now, all the people in political sphere knows that to win any election, whether it's the presidential election or a general election, that they have to gain support from the younger generation. So it's the kind of change that we made, and we can definitely leverage that. So if we act wisely, then I'm pretty sure in the next election, the PPP, the conservatives, have learned something from this recent general election, saying that by giving up on people of 20s and 30s, they lost this general election. Then they know that in the next election they would have to do something new to appease the younger generation. So that's the kind of change that had happened to the Korean public. So Korean politicians now acknowledge the younger generation as the swing generation of the new era. So we should rely on that. But from the Reform Party's point of view, it's a little different because, I mean, if the political system is kept in a like a 2 separated faction system, then it is very unlikely for us to gain power in that sphere. But well, we should come up with our own ideas to deal with the situation. It could be, I mean, well, there are journalists there, so I'm really trying to keep this a secret. But well, we might have to join forces with one of the factions in the next upcoming election. But we haven't decided on it. But if we are like a clear, crisp representatives of the younger generation, that we might be in a position where we can join forces with another faction to actually put it in the platform what the younger generation wants, and we can join forces with the other faction. But we haven't come up with a decision yet. But yeah, we're coming up with ideas. Yeah. That question? Yeah.
한글로 질문
네, 편하게 하셔도
네. 일단 강연 너무 잘 들었고
예.
좀 늦었지만 당선 너무 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
네. 사실 평소에도 이 말씀하신 것처럼 거부할 수 없는 미래. 그러니까 사실 딱 눈에 보이는 어느 정도 10년, 20년 걸릴 수 있지만 다가오는 그 문제에 대해서 유일하게 언급을 해주시는 거의 정치인분이라 생각을 하시고 있어서 평소에도 많이 팔로우업을 하고 있었고, 실제로 오늘도 말씀해주신 이제 연금 문제는 안 나왔지만 연금 개혁 문제라든지 최근에 이슈가 되고 있는 징병 문제도 그렇고 한데, 저는 그 중에서 특히 징병 문제에 관해서 양성 징병에 거의 유일하게 적극적으로 의견 표현하시는 의원분이라서 좀 여쭤보고 싶었던 게 있는데, 공무원 지원하는 여성분들에 한해서 이제 군 병역을 완수해야 된다. 저도 당연히 동의하는 바이지만 그것보다 저는 사실 더 우선이라고 생각하는 게, 이 의사, 변호사, 사실 남성으로 인해서 그런 전문대학원을 가게 되면 3년 4개월 정도, 거의 한 40개월 가까이 그렇게 군 법무관이나 아니면은 의무관으로 공중보건이 아닌 그런 식으로 복무를 하게 되는데, 그런 전문대학원이나 아니면 그런 전문직을 하기 시작한 여성들의 경우는 진짜로 못할 신체적 이유가 전혀 없다고 생각하는데, 물론 이제 완전한 양성 징병제에 대해서는 토론의 거지가 있지만 이 건에 대해서는 토론의 여지도 없이 무조건 가능하다고 생각해서 저는 사실 그 점이 먼저여야 되지 않나 생각을 했습니다. 물론 공무원들도 당연히 해야 되는 게 저는 동의하는 바이지만, 그래서 이런 전문직종을 하는 여성분들 여기 있다면 혹시 죄송하지만 죄송할 얘기는 아닌 것 같은데, 그래서 어쨌든 이 건에 대해서는 혹시 생각 어떻게 하시는지 그게 좀 너무 궁금해서 제가 사실 7시에 스케줄이 있는데 꼭 여쭤보고 싶어서 좀 늦게 나와서 질문 드리고 싶었습니다. 감사합니다.
So he's basically asking me, people who graduate from med schools and people who pass the bar exams in Korea, and men are conscripted to the military, and shouldn't the woman in those areas should be also conscripted as officers in the Korean military? Well, I haven't thought about it, but I think it's a reasonable thing you say there. But I mean, men who are in mandatory military service, they can choose between serving in the military or serving in the rural areas as a public doctor. So then, if women are to be given similar choices, then I think it's not a bad idea, since we're suffering from the situation where we had not too many doctors and say lawyers in rural areas. So that could be an option. But yeah, well, as a conservative guy, I'm always against putting more like burden on people of any kind. Say like putting the burden of military service on more people is actually what's disturbing me at this point, because of the idea. But well, as of now, I think for fairness, I think it makes sense to some extent. Yeah, but yeah, I would have. Well, my terminal goal is to remove conscription and make no one suffer from these mandatory military service. But yeah. But in the interim solution, as an interim solution, I think it makes sense, because we are suffering from a low number of doctors and lawyers in rural areas. Yeah, that's my point of view. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try to answer short and answer all of your questions.
일단 우선 당선 정말 축하드립니다. 저도 유튜브나 이런 걸 통해서 되게 당선자님의 행보나 이런 것들을 많이 봐왔고, 이번에는 미래라고 하셨으니까 미래도 과학이 포함되어 있겠죠. 당선자께서 서울과고 넣으시고 컴공적으로 하셨는데, 저도 되게 비슷한 태클을 타면서 그래서 과학에 정말 관심이 많은데, 작년에 대통령께서 R&D를 삭감을 하고 그걸로 통해서 되게 많은 대학원생들이 피해를 보고, 이를 통해서 과학계가 난리가 났잖아요. 그래서 좀 질문 드리고 싶은 게 일단 뭐 우리나라가 지금 이 상황에서 뭐 어떤 식으로 해서 과학계를 살려야 되는지 그리고 또 다른 나라들에 비해서는 어떤 점이 뒤처지고 있는지 또 개혁신당에서는 어떠한 트렌드 아니면 스탠스를 취하고 있는지가 궁금합니다.
Well, I would say that an imminent threat to the science sector in Korea is like, I would have mentioned some stupid person started to increase the number of medical students from 3,000 to 5,000. Well, the number of college students are dwindling and the number would go down to something like 200,000 college students a year admitted to college, but well, out of the 200,000, 5,000 medical student means it's a very high ratio, you know. And if we keep those ratio, and if our president decides to stick to that idea of keeping the 5,000 medical students a year, then I think we would not have enough people to take care of our science and technology, because you all know that. If you take the Korean SAT, out of the 200,000 people, 4% would be named first class 1등급. Then, so out of the 200,000, about 60% pursue science and tech path, 이과, and then out of the 60%, which means 120,000, if 4% means 4,800. So 5,000 medical students means that everyone in that first class grade means they would enter medicine. So, which means that no one would go to science tech. So, out of all the stupid things that Yoon did, I think that's like the biggest stupid thing that he did, and he's gonna damage Korean science and technology permanently. So he should definitely reset the numbers back to 3,000. Yeah, but yeah, he would not listen to anyone. So the SNU student should be really aware. The only reason he raised the number from 3,000 to 5,000 is because then the parents of the people who are preparing for med school are gonna like it, which means that Yoon can, at some point of time, can make a decision to increase the number of students in SNU to double its current numbers. That's the kind of policy-making decisions Yoon is making. So you should really be afraid of his these ideas, you know. Winter is coming. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much for an insightful lecture. 목소리가 지금 좀 쉬어가지고. 네, do you personally have your own way of choosing a priority? Because as you've mentioned throughout your lecture, there's a lot of issues that are not being dealt because there's just too much on the table for politicians. The first question would be, do you personally have a way that you could put all of those matters onto the table? And if that's not your strategy, would there be a chronological order that you think Korea should follow in order to address most of these issues that are on the table?
Well, I put those issues on the table because I want the public to know that there are so many imminent threats that's coming to Korea right now. Because, so Korean people who are interested in Korean politics, the public, are usually focused on who goes to prison, that issue. So we gotta deviate from that issue, and we have to see what the threats are coming, what the imminent threats are. And I would mention that I'm not a superhuman or anything, so I personally don't believe that I can solve most of the issues. But I even think I may not solve any of the issues, but I'm pretty confident that if you put those things on the table, the Korean crowd or the public would be smart enough to come up with a solution of their own when we put it onto the debate table. So I think as a politician, my primary role is to put everything on the table and try to tell the public whenever I have a chance that these things are coming in the near future. Yeah, somebody has to just shout out these things, and I think that's my role. And I may come up with some solutions to some of the questions, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the professional for everything. So yeah, that's the kind of thinking I have. Yeah, and personally, I deal with things in a first in, first out manner. So yeah, in chronological order, I think. Yeah. Yeah. People in uniform.
Thank you for your lecture. As you mentioned yourself about the first and first come issues or issues of basis, one of the most prominent and imminent issues that you face in the next General Assembly, I believe, is concerning the several special prosecutors law that is facing President Yoon, both on the First Lady and on the Private Sergeant Che's special prosecution. Those issues, without resolve, would result in the President vetoing the motion, and some deviations are expected from the PPP, but not as much as you would expect. So that's the general political consensus. I don't know what that is in Yoido right now. In those sorts of issues, and in the upcoming issues that will be on a similar basis, that regards both human rights issues and conscription basis that you yourself has prioritized over the past few years, how do you want to formulate the next 4 to 5 years of your party and your policies front lines? Because, as you said, it is a first in, first come basis, but there should also be principles. What was lacking in the previous political debate was the lack of the principles themselves. So what are your principles on those human rights violation issues that might come up still afterwards? What is your vision for governance, maybe?
Well, we only have 3 members in our party, so we would have to split up the issues among our MPs especially. We have other members other than the MPs, but well, I prioritize all my thinkings about dealing with the country system here in Korea. So I try not to deal too much with the current issues, because I mean, current issues we all pay attention to it, but it's not my main concern at this point, because, well, by definition, parliament means that it's a group of people thinking together. So I can add my ideas to it, but I'm not the main resolver of the issue, nor I can lead a big faction to drive the discussion to some direction. So, well, my role, basically, I prioritize in giving new ideas to some fields that I'm interested in, and namely the educational sector, I would say. And so education and science and tech, those are the fields that me and some of the members in our party are trying to specialize in. And of course, one of our MP members, Ms. Lee Ju-young, she's a doctor and she specializes in medicine, and she is into those healthcare issues and those kind of stuff. But she has interests of her own, but myself and many members of the party, including the current MP Yang Hyung-ja, we try to specialize in the science, tech, and industry issues at the moment. Yeah, because seriously, I think Mr. Jo-guk is far more better than me in putting someone else into prison and dealing with all these prosecution issues and all this stuff, because he also has many experiences in getting prosecuted also. So yeah, I think he's more professional in that sector. So yeah, so I'm gonna leave out those issues to the guys in the Jo-guk Hyoksindang, and we're gonna deal with more science and tech and education and industrial issues for now on, for at least the upcoming few months. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's this Korean proverb saying that somebody has to raise the cow, you know? Somebody has to raise the cow in the farm, and I think that party should be the Reform Party in this assembly. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Okay, the next man in uniform.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation, and as there are many questions, I will try to make it short as possible. You mentioned Hong Kong, right? And so my question is then, how should politicians choose between national interest and the role of being an international society member?
Well, I would like to defy the idea of saying that deviating from the Hong Kong issue is aligning ourselves with national interests. I totally don't agree with that because, I mean, so here's the thing. So people of my generation or your generation, we were born in a developed country. We were born in a country where democracy was there from the beginning. It was given to us, and economic prosperity was given to us since our birth. So we are thinking of the global community in a different manner. Say, if we are to, claim our rights, then we have more responsibilities, and we know that. And I mean, Australia and other countries, they are in a similar situation as us. They are, Australia is selling, say, iron ores to China. They may be in a similar situation, but they are making these right remarks on issues about Hong Kong and those kind of things. They are making good remarks on the human rights issues in China. And why can't we do that? Because some people say that we are in a weaker standing than the Australians regarding the leverages that we have. But I mean, semiconductor can be a good leverage that we have here, and it is acting as one. And so I believe that it is time for us to actually chase after values than just mere economic prosperity or national interest. I don't even know what that means, national interest now. So because we taught our students in middle schools and high schools saying that democracy is like the invaluable thing that we have to pursue, and that was when we were teaching them about Gwangju and all this stuff. And when we face these situations in Hong Kong, if we have to come up with a different logic, then we're teaching something wrong there, you know. So we have to abide by the teachings we give to the middle school and high school students. So I believe when we are to choose between the two, well, like people of age 40 and 50 and older, they would have chose the term national interest, but I say the younger generation should choose values over those national interests. And the value means that we trace the values of more civilized and more, say, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but westernized values, or yeah. Well, whenever I talk to the Chinese ambassador, he would try to teach me what democracy is, and I really refused the idea. And he would always teach me that I should understand that there is a Chinese style of democracy that we should learn. And I'll say, well, we had experience in Korean style democracy, and anything that comes democracy means that it's not a democracy. So, yeah, well, we should try to abide by the pure democracy that we teach to our middle school students and high school students. That's my idea. Yeah. Okay. The gentleman in front. Blue shirt, yeah.
네, 이준석 전 대표님
네.
강연 잘 들었습니다.
네.
저는 축소 사회에 관해서 얘기하고 싶은데요. 축소 사회에서 얘기할 때 보통 생산 인구 감소로 인한 한국 경제 규모의 축소가 주요 중점 사안이었던 것 같은데, 저는 그 인구 감소로 인한 그 다양성, 한국 사회 다양성의 감소에도 되게 중대한 사안이라고 좀 생각이 듭니다. 예를 들어서 국회 앞으로 들어가실 건데, 국회에서도 300명의 각각 다양한 관심사와 다양한 그 목소리를 가진 사람들이 모여서 그 사회를 발전시키기 위해서 이렇게 모이는데, 만약에 인구가 감소되면 각자 다양한 관심사를 가진 사람들이 줄어들고, 그러면은 뭔가 한국 사회 발전도 조금 더 지체되거나 지연될 수 있겠다라는 생각이 들었습니다. 그래서 정리하자면 인구 감소, 그 축소 사회가 불러일으킬 뭔가 한국 사회 다양성 감소를 뭔가 정치에 계신 분들이 뭔가 이야기를 꺼내고 있는지, 또 이준석 전 대표님의 의견도 궁금합니다.
He's asked questions about the shrinking society in Korea, if the birth rate goes down and population goes down, then wouldn't that mean decrease in the diversity of Korean population? And I totally agree, and I'm really worried about that because, I mean, by diversity in our Congress or in our parliament, I mean, well, none of you here actually could be running for an NPC. That means a decrease in diversity because, I mean, not too many people now try to become a politician nor try to work for the public in general. So, which means that we're going to see less and less diversity within the field of politics, and which means that politics means changed, and we can think of less change in the future. And well, I sensed like the decrease in the level of diversity among the SNU students has also been on the media for a while, and it could be a problem. And well, I gotta say, I don't have like a clear resolution to this problem, but I think diversity is really important value we must chase. And the thing here is, so I'm trying to alleviate the situation. So I told the media yesterday saying that the Reform Party, in preparation for the upcoming regional provincial election, is going to try to bring more and more younger generation into politics and bring more and more women into politics. We came up with those ideas and we'll announce the details, but I believe, because I started to work as an MP for Dongtan region, and I sense that in Dongtan region there are so many married women with abilities who gave up their careers. And I kind of think that, well, these women, they received good education and they are of age 30s and older, and they, when their kids go to middle school or so, then they would have chance to have their own time. And if they want to go back to their career, it would be a tough thing for them. But if they choose to participate in politics, that would mean that it will be a positive change for the diversity of the Korean politics sphere. And our party is definitely going in that direction for the upcoming regional election. So we're going to try to impose a system for nominating our candidates where the women and the younger generations are not at a disadvantage. Because in current political system of Korea, when women and younger generation run for candidacy, it's really hard then for them to win the candidacy because, I mean, to become a candidate in Korean parties, you have to spend a lot of time drinking till very late time in the evening. Because in order for you to collect party members to vote for you, it means that you're going to have to make personal connections with the party members. And of course, you know, in Korea that means drinking a lot. See, those kind of the odd things that we should remove from Korean politics. And so we're trying to come up with a solution. So we're going to be holding a debate competition. We're going to be having another, like, say, policy challenges and all those kind of things to remove the barriers for younger generation and the women who are trying to be in politics. So those are the things that we are going to do for to diversify participants of the Korean politics. But I know these ideas are not final nor mature, but yeah, you can always help me find the solution because I'm really thinking it's a problem for the whole Korean society. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the lecture. Contrary to its name, the Reform Party does not seem to have proposed any special reform program in the last election. Also, you are mentioned as the future president, like the three presidents who were your Harvard alumni. I am curious as to whether you have a series of reform programs, such as Theodore Roosevelt's Square Deal, Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, and Kennedy's New Frontier? And if so, what is the direction?
So I am not actually running for presidency right now, so I haven't come up with the serious ideas for such a level of reform that you mentioned. But I do believe that the Reform Party is definitely. I always say that I want the Reform Party to be the bravest party among the parties, because I told you, say, we should really think about. I mean, always Korean people. I told you about the two factions. Korean people always looked at one, economic prosperity, or two, democratization. Those were the two criteria that people were looking after. But I would have to mention that after like 6 decades of this republic, that we have accumulated homeworks that we have to do. Say, namely, so we're going to make reforms in social sector. Say, so let's mention our divorce laws. Say, in Korea, it is very hard to divorce. You know that's why, because in the 50s and 60s, when they were making these laws, under the Confucianist system, that Korean men were likely to dump their family and just move on to a new marriage without giving enough economic ways to support the family for the remaining members of the family. So the law made it really hard for Korean men to divorce without, consent from the woman. But now things have changed. If you look at the law case between the SK chairman, Mr. Choi Tae-won, and Ms. No So-young, so we all sense that things have to change, because they were virtually out of marriage for, say, 10 years, and yet they failed to divorce. And this Mr. Choi Tae-won is actually virtually married to another woman. It's been like that for 10 years. And we have to come up with a new law to deal with these kind of situations. And those kinds of reforms were never put on the table by other parties, but the Reform Party during the last election mentioned those kind of things. And at the same time, someone mentioned conscription for women also. Those kind of things are brave thing for a new party to mention, but we are willing to make those kind of ideas. And I'll say, well, we'll come up with those, but not to that extent you mentioned, say, like the New Deal program or any kind of like thing, but at this moment. But when I run for presidency, then I'll definitely come up with those kind of big reform ideas. But now we are dealing with the accumulated homeworks that we should have done, and within the 3 or 4 years, we will be laying out these things to the public. Yeah, gradually. Yeah. The lady in front. Yeah.
Thank you for taking your time to do this, and Professor Lee as well. I especially enjoyed your take on South Korea and basically how they approach the US in terms of diplomacy, which leads me to my question. During Trump's presidency, we've seen a very hardcore, like, America First approach, and how, I guess, the effect it has had in our alliance, especially in terms of defense cost sharing and Trump's own affinity with Kim Jong-un. There is a strong chance he is going to be re-elected this year, and there are a lot of people who believe that these things will once again be under the microscope. Given your own beliefs, what would you advise for this administration on how to, I guess, approach a Trump-like personality? And my second question is, did you personally like Yoon's rendition of American Pie?
I mean, the whole question comes down to, you can do anything, but what did we get in return? And Korean public, especially the younger generations, are not thinking that we did get anything in return. But definitely, if Trump takes his place, then I think it's the second term of his presidency, so he will be a little different from his first term in saying that, in the first term, as you mentioned, he thought he could be friends with Kim Jong-un, and they were going along well, but it didn't have any actual result that came out of it. So I believe a clever person like Trump would come up with some different manners in terms of dealing with North Korea, but that's my expectation. But so regarding the SMA and the defense cost issue, well, I mean, it would be very apparent that Trump would push on for more and more burden on Korea, but I heard the numbers saying maybe he would ask for double the current numbers or the triple the current numbers, but if Trump really wants that, then we would have to come up with something to compensate that to appease the Korean public. I would say, as I mentioned, it namely could be gaining or earning our right to make our own nuclear-propelled submarine or reprocess our fuels, because reprocessing our fuel means that we can resolve one of the key environmental issue in Korea with the nuclear waste issue. And those kind of barter, if we can make, then I think the Korean public would understand doubling or tripling our burden on the SMA agreement. But if not so, then people are going to ask Mr. Yoon saying like, "Oh, you did it again." So it's really up to President Yoon to understand Donald Trump. I think doubling or tripling our defense cost could be something that Trump cannot really pull back on. So in that case, we should really ask for something else, and I think that is the nuclear's reprocessing issue, waste reprocessing issue, or adopting our nuclear propelled submarine. Because I saw in the newspaper article last week saying that our defense minister Shin Won-sik proposed that we participate in the Pillar 2 of the AUKUS system, and Pillar 1 is the nuclear submarine thing, and if we extend our participation to Pillar 1, that would be a thing that could appease the Korean public enough to accept the doubling cost. Yeah, so it's really up to Yoon, but up to now, Yoon has never shown such a delicate manner in diplomacy. He would always mention that we have to be brave enough to give everything to them first. So yeah, if you remember him saying that we should fill up the glass, half the glass first to Japan, so that they can fill the other half, and see what happened with the neighbor line issue. So I mean, Yoon is not learning from these matters. So I mean, but I hope him to be better, as a Korean citizen. Yeah. 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 The gentleman. Yeah. Wearing the sweater. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your lecture so far. I'm currently a student at the Graduate School of International Studies here, and I'm from the United States, so I am an outsider to Korean politics. And I am trying to learn, which is why I took the chance to come here and listen to you speak. Now, from an outsider's perspective, as I'm trying to understand Korean politics, the impression I get of your position and kind of your career trajectory is that you are a very divisive figure, particularly when it comes to gender issues. Now, I don't want to take any opinion on that strongly. I would just like to ask you, what is your vision, or how do you envision reconciling a lot of the problems that Korea may have when it comes to gender? Because you talk about undeniable future, but it seems like a lot of the policies and the politics in Korea seem to portray this future that's denying women. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so there was a slide where it had all these charts, and that slide was about division between people. Say, the older generation here in Korea so much into the regional divide between the Gyeongsang province and the Jeolla province. It's a historical thing, and people in the 40s and 50s, they're so much into division among the economic classes, and people in the 20s and 30s are so much into this gender divide. That's what the numbers were showing, and I'll just have to say that I know the claim against me is saying that I'm such a divisive figure in terms of gender related issue, and I would have to mention that when I was in college in between 2003 and 2007, back in the States, and that was a time when all these gender-related debates were going on in the States, and these minority issues and all those stuff. But I sense that in Korea, these things come in a cycle that is 10 years slower than the US. So I sense that recently in Korea, among the social issues, one of the biggest issues was about political correctness, the language we use. And I remember those kind of debates and those kind of issues were big in the US when Mr. Obama was in his office. So it comes in as some delay in Korea. So, and in Korea, when we talk about this gender divide, and when I get the claim that I'm one of the people who is worsening the situation, then I would ask them, say, can you point out a sentence that I said that should actually widening the gap between the gender, and they couldn't come up with any because I think, from my point of view, I think that I'm getting those remarks because Korean people are not used to these kind of social issues in debate. Because I mean, whenever we mention conscripting women to the military, they perceive it as something that favors men. But I think otherwise. I come up with that idea because it's an inevitable thing that we are running out of people to fill our military. It comes from a different origin, but people view it as, people think that I said those things just to appease men. It's a real different approach, but I think we should be brave enough to come up with this issue because we cannot be intimidated by those remarks saying that you're dividing the gender gap here or you're widening the gender gap here, because this imminent threats regarding, like, say, military issues and are more important to us. So I think Korean people are getting used to these kind of social debates, and comparing these ideas to how it was dealt like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it's getting better in terms of people understanding these issues. So I think it's gonna get better. The thing here is that there are so many issues that Korea has never touched on, you know, say like the sexual minority issues and say all these philosophical issues were never dealt in Korea. So I really look forward to it. At the same time, I'm really worried about it because we have so little experience in it. So whenever I say something related to gender, some people would point to me and say, "You just made a hate speech," and I would say, "Do you even know how serious that means?" You know, like in the U.S., my experience is that when someone says you're making a hate speech, that's a really serious accusation that you're making. But in Korea, you say that with no responsibility here in Korea. So here's the thing that we have to improve on here, saying that, because I mean, Korea has really little experience with these kind of discussions. So I mean, so I'm really waiting for this things to change, but I'll be brave enough to carry out these kind of discussions. Yeah, so things. Yeah. The lady in the middle, maybe, yeah.
Thank you for your thought-provoking lecture for us, and it's my personal honor to have you in person. And actually, I felt that you have a great interest and like affection towards SNU students. I'm not sure you are already aware or not. Next year, SNU will adopt 학부대학. Yeah, so that might, I believe, might be focusing more on generalists rather than specialists.
Right.
And reflecting on your career, starting from like a computer programmer and like an economic major and up to the political circles, and how do you taking your position on the SNU adoption? And the second question might be a bit personal one. Also my major was like British American culture, and I was into sports world. Now I'm studying global sports management under the government funded with ODA fund and other like so-called global south country students who are coming from sports world. And probably you might not be deeply into sports, but more broadly might be soft power, might be culture and sports, etc. So how do you feel about any soft power like taking shape in your undeniable future? Thank you.
Well,
And okay, one on another personal note, and then probably in sports world might not be separable from the politics. I just wanted to make contribution the enhancement of Korean sports in the global arena. Then how to be a possible path for myself to think about in the future.
Okay. So the point about SNU adopting this 학부대학 system, well, I totally am for it because I graduated from Harvard. So whenever I saw, so I attended KAIST for 2 months before I go to Harvard. So here's the thing. So Harvard is all about diversity. So I like that because when I was in KAIST for 2 months, back then we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have mobile phones. So every floor of our dormitory, we had a TV screen in the resting area. And one interesting thing was, and when I was in KAIST, we didn't fight over TV channels. The TV channel was always set to a channel which was doing this StarCraft game videos or something like that. So we were like people of the same kind. So we didn't have any disputes or anything about the TV channel. But when I was in Harvard, so I was in a dormitory with 8 colleagues, and so one had to watch this football TV, program, and one had to watch this Spanish program, and one had to watch this some history channel or something like that. And we all had our shares in our channel, and I was forced to see some of the Spanish channels, which I didn't even understand. So, but really, it's the kind of some forced diversity that I experienced really shaped me a lot in a better way. Say, I would have to mention. So I was in IT, and so my experience with IT in Korea, if you back in year 2000 or so, if you started an IT company, you would classify people as into three categories. One, a developer, one designer, and one, say, my manager or something like that. But, well, so I was in Harvard with the founders of Facebook. So I remember, so when they were starting Facebook, there were like 2 or 3 members from computer science and were studying computer science, and the other guys were studying history, philosophy, and all these other things. So whenever Korean people back then were designing these IT services, they like dividing up their services into small divisions. Say like, if you want to post your photo, then you would have to go into this section called photo album, and you would post your photo there. And if you were to write an article, you would put it up in this section called article board. and something like that, things like that. So they divided up to slice it up into sections. But something that I was interested in when they were designing Facebook was then when they were designing this Facebook, the guys from this history who were studying history meant that why do we have to split up all these things into sections? I mean, in history we put all these kind of things into a thing called timeline, and since then all the IT services in the U.S. started putting everything in chronological order. So Korean people who are like studying the identical things, they would have never come up with such an idea, I believe. So it's really important that we mingle with like different people, and so that's the kind of thing I sense with my friends from high school who attended SNU. So they are like such smart people, but they have little experience talking with people different from them. So I believe that it's a great initiative that they have, and well, they're gonna start with small numbers, but I believe that at the end they're gonna come to a status where that most of the students like the program. Say one thing I liked about Harvard was that we accept 1,600 students a year, and when I was graduating from college back then, people who chose computer science as their concentration, the number was somewhere around 60 out of the 1,600 who got admitted. I think I heard the numbers these days are something like 300. So it's really a good thing that the school can actually adapt to demands of the students easily by adopting that system. So yeah, I think it would be a great change for SNU. And regarding the ODA and soft power issue, definitely that it would be a challenge that we have to go through for Korea. And I think soft power wise, I mean, back in 2003 and 2007, I talk about 2003 and 2007 a lot, but 15, 20 years ago when I was in the US, I saw no one actually watching Korean dramas or Korean movies or like enjoying Korean culinary cultures or anything like that. Back then, it was only a few Korean Americans from California who were like into these kind of things. But now, when I hear from my people in Massachusetts, they say that it's become very common, and I think Korea should definitely put more efforts into increasing our soft power or promoting our soft power globally. And I think so. Here's the thing. So I was in the session last week in the National Assembly saying about if we are to export our democracy to overseas, and well, at first it looked reasonable, but when we're thinking about exporting Korean-style democracy to other authoritarian countries, namely China, I think it's really a hard thing for us to do, but I think we can say we should really try hard to export these kind of soft power or things to overseas, because I mean, Korea definitely has something that the East Asian culture can accept more easily than the Western style soft powers. So we should definitely invest more into that. Yeah, I think, yeah. Next question maybe, yeah. Oh, we have the lady in, yeah. Okay, we have 13 more minutes, yeah. I'm gonna try to answer short, yeah.
Thank you again for coming to the SNU and then giving a lecture again. Like I was actually here last year, and then I really enjoyed your insights about like our like a birth rate, like lower birth rates and everything. But since you have a background in the science and IT, and I was surprised that you didn't bring anything about the future, like this technology change, because the topic is that the given topic is the undeniable future, and we mostly discussed about the ideology. So I guess my question is like, what do you think about like how like Korea is a react to the future, like a climate change or like the energy transitions, and that sort of position, like because right now the President Yoon is sort of doing the sales politics, and how would you how do you think, what do you think about what he's doing now? Like how would you evaluate what he's doing, and then if you were to be in a position to make the decision, maybe in the near future, because since you mentioned that there's possibility of yourself going into the presidency, it's like how would you do it? Because in the scientific, yeah, like from the climate or the science point of view, since you're also since you won in the Dongtan district, that must be something that you have the role for that. So.
Right. Yep. Well, the thing here is that I didn't want to be a clumsy futurist, as I mentioned. So I didn't want to mention any of this really detailed science tech in here because, well, I know a lot of things about those things, but I'm not that professional to lay those out to you. But the thing here is, well, remember how I talked about the younger generations are thinking that we were born in a developed country and we are now ready to take the responsibilities? That's my take on the climate change and the energy transition issue. Because, well, if we look at our industry, it is really hard for us to keep our advantages against China or other developing countries by manufacturing cost or those kind of traditional factors. Well, we would have to follow the path of the developed countries or the Western countries by, to be honest, imposing more trade barriers, using those restrictions regarding, say, renewable energies and, say, all those are commitments to climate change and energy transition. So I think we should definitely try to think of ourselves as a developed country now. That's the big difference between Mr. Yoon and me, because Mr. Yoon thinks that we really have to get all those exemptions that we enjoyed for the past decades as a developing nation, developing country. But now I think it's a completely different story because we cannot compete in the league of developing countries with China in manufacturing or all these industries. We have to now fall into the league of the developed countries. And now, I remember back in my college days when the Harvard Foundation, the corporation, tried to invest into a company in Sudan, I think, and that the student body found out that the company in Sudan was funded by a Chinese petroleum corporation, and so they were not abiding by some of the regulations that the U.S. government was imposing. So the student body actually forced the Harvard Foundation, the Harvard Corporation, to divest from those companies in Sudan, which was invested by the Chinese companies. So those kind of efforts were really interesting to me, and I believe the Koreans should also try to line up ourselves with the restrictions and, say, regulations of the more developed countries, and we should try to invest more into energy transition and, say, climate change. You gotta pay more attention to climate change because that is the kind of thing we can widen the gap between us and the developing China and more developing countries. Yeah, that's my take on it. Yeah. 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 The gentleman in front. Yeah.
네, 안녕하세요.
네.
네, 발표 잘 들었어요.
네.
네, 강연 잘 들었습니다.
네.
제가 그 이준석 대표님께 여쭤보고 싶은 게 그 이준석 대표님이 후보자이셨을 때 하셨던 공약에 대한 것인데요. 바로 그 지하철 무임승차 관련 공약에 대한 견해를 여쭙고 싶었습니다. 제가 생각하기로 그거 이준석 대표님의 공약에 반대되는 두 개의 견해가 있다고 생각이 되는데요. 첫 번째는 그 지하철 노인분들이 지하철을 무료로 타면서 그걸로 인해서 노인들의 우울증 개선이나 자살률 감소 등의 사회적으로 좋은 것을 통해서 오히려 국가에서 세금이 덜 나가는 효과도 있다. 그래서 지하철 무임승차는 유지돼야 된다라는 견해가 첫 번째고요. 두 번째는 노인들 그 지하철의 적자가 노인들이 무임승차를 해서가 아니라 그 한국 교통 자체에 문제가 있다. 예를 들어서 시내버스는 노인들이 무임승차하지 않고 다 돈을 다 내는데도 시내버스는 작년 적자가 났거든요. 그리고 대한민국이 OECD 국가들 중에서도 되게 교통비가 되게 낮기로도 유명해서 교통 천국이라는 말이 붙기도 했잖아요. 대한민국이라는 국가에. 그래서 이런 두 가지의 견해들이 있는데 그 두 개의 견해들에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시는지 의견을 여쭙고 싶었습니다.
Well, so the question here is that in the recent election, I proposed that we remove the fare exemption of the elderly citizens for the subway lines here in Seoul. And the thing here is that the main opposition thinking is that the elder citizens are going to be healthier riding free subways, and the other is that they're going to feel less suicidal because they are not just sitting in their houses and they're just walking in public and they're enjoying the life in the city. So, but I think if they are feeling so good riding the subway, walking around, meeting other people, why can't they do that in the parks, you know? Can they just walk around the parks? I think that claim may look right, but I mean, there are other ways they can like walk outside and they can meet the people outside, but it's not the sole solution to just make this subway free. Would be the only way they can meet other people. So I propose the idea, and at the same time, I mean, is it fair to keep the subway fare free for the elderly citizens who are living in Seoul metropolitan area only? Because people who are living in rural area, they are in a worse economic condition than most of the people in Seoul metropolitan area, yet they have no subway line to ride free. So that could be a matter of fairness there. So we propose that we remove the fare exemption for the elderly citizen, and we provide them with, say, 100,000 won transportation voucher for every elderly citizen. So it was our idea, and so the people who lived in, so the elderly citizens who lived in rural areas, they really liked our ideas, and people who lived in Seoul metropolitan area, they disliked our idea. But I think it's a policy choice that we have to make here. We value fairness more, so we believe that it's important for us to make some sort of subsidy for the people who are not living in Seoul metropolitan area. So that was our idea. And at the same time, you mentioned how the subway was made free for the elderly citizens, but yet the buses are not free for the elderly citizens. So here's the interesting thing. So I live in the Nowon district in the northern part of Seoul. The thing here is that people did not go to markets near their houses. They went to Gyeongdong Market, which was 10 kilometers away from their houses, just because Gyeongdong Market was near the subway and they can ride the subway free. So whenever I go to work, I will see this group of elderly citizens who would just ride the subway from their house, which is near the subway, to the Gyeongdong Market to buy a pack of, say, vegetable. And I was thinking, is that even right? Because, I mean, there's a market nearby, but if they go to the market that is only like a kilometer away, they have to ride a bus, which they have to pay. They go to the market that is 10 kilometers away, they don't have to pay for the subway, they go to the market. I think it's a very stupid system, so I think we have to make changes to it. And I think 100,000, 100K one transportation voucher is a enough replacement for those elderly citizens if they use it widely, because we propose that we give them a 50% discount if they use up all the 100K in the voucher. And at the same time, so I'm now stationed at this Dongtan area. So recently this GTX-A train went into operation, and this GTX-A train since this beginning of operation, they don't have that elderly citizen fare exemption policy. Yeah. Everyone pays for GTX-A, so it's not the future that we're talking about. It's the reality that's coming to us. Yeah. So I'm gonna take 2 more questions because it's 7:58. So the gentleman with masks on.
So thank you for your lecture. My question is about the line NAVA issue right now. So recently, the Japanese government has kind of made governmental policies over to take over the line department from NAVA, and this shows like how actual threats about foreign governments over like kind of interest according to their national interest. Imposing such threats over Korean companies and Korean industries. However, the government right now, is not kind of doing, is kind of being criticized by not imposing appropriate actions towards this kind of issues, and like recently, not over Japan, but also China and the United States are kind of making similar kind of policies to kind of protect their own industries and to kind of rid out the Korean, not only Korea, but foreign industries from their own nation. So I'm kind of wondering like what would be kind of an appropriate react of the Korean government about these issues, and I'm also wondering about your perspective of this kind of situations which will be more prevalent in the near future. Thank you.
I'm now almost seeing this like a new style of mercantilism here acting in global society right now, because everyone in their domestic politics propose that they are promoting free trade and they are promoting regulation-free society. But even Mr. Yoon says that he values freedom the most, and he mentioned freedom, say, 40 times in his inauguration speech. And now, the thing here is that, well, you mentioned how similar things are going on with the US-China trade dispute, and remember how the US forced China to sell TikTok to the US, and they pointed out there were some security measures that they did not take, and Japan is making exactly the same accusation to line neighbor. So it's a very tough thing for us, because US said the same thing to the China, and China couldn't do anything to it, and now Japan is imposing the same kind of threat to us. So, well, here's the thing. So, Mr. Yoon, I mean, he's really doing wrong in the sense that he's done enough to appease the Japanese politicians and public. When I hear from the Japanese diplomats, the Japanese public likes Yoon so much because he's always giving. Yeah, but it's a stupid thing. I think Yoon should definitely say some things about these, and at the same time, so I think Japan is making a false accusation in saying that line neighbor failed to deal with these security issues, because personally, as a person who was in IT, Korean IT systems are, IT companies are superior to Japanese IT companies in terms of membership management and keeping security, because we have experience of running these very large-scale platform businesses, including computer games also. And back in 1990s, we built a server that can handle 50,000 user clients in a single server. That was a record high for a computer server. So that was namely the server for computer game Lineage. And I've mentioned that server technology is not an issue. Maybe something happened to the system, but it's not a big thing that neighbor line cannot handle. So Mr. Yoon, President Yoon should definitely look into this issue and tell the details to the Japanese guy, saying that this thing could happen anytime, but it's not an issue that we cannot deal with, you know. So I mean, I hope that Yoon is looking into this problem, but he has so many problems on his hands. So I think I'm not sure if it's on his priority list or anything like that, but I think it's a really important thing because I mean it's a platform loved by the people of Japan and people of Southeast Asia. So Line Neighbor and the Line platform, it can be a really cash cow for the Korean IT companies, and it's like Kakao Talk of the Japan and Southeast Asia. So we shouldn't be selling it cheap, you know. So yeah. Last question. Okay, the gentleman with cap on, yeah. Yeah, you should be wearing something if you wanna select it. Yeah. And after the question, I'll be taking photos if you want. Yeah, so. Yeah.
Thank you. Party member here too. So my question is, last month in an interview, when you talked about education, you talked about why it's important to prepare the future generation for AI automation and the transition in the job market. But for people like me, who's 28, gotta get employed, liberal arts major, I think I won't be a beneficiary of that preparation. So my question is twofold. First, as a politician and policymaker, what are some ideas that you have for people like me who are going into the job market very soon? And secondly, as a guy who is always ahead of the curve, like you made a lot of money with crypto, you're a comp sci major, do you have any personal advice for people like me?
뭐 financial wise,
that would be great too, actually.
Okay. Well, so as I mentioned, like even if society seems to go advantageous for the tech-savvy guys, and I mentioned how among the Facebook founders, there were a few people who majored in history or philosophy who actually contributed a lot to the founding process of Facebook. Say, I mean, though computer science major, the tech-savvy guy would have thought of this function called like, meaning that you don't want to write anything, but you want to say something about your emotions or anything like that. So there are definitely some places where you can participate in the first place. And second time, it is not really hard to become tech savvy these days, because back in year 2003, 2007, when I was in college, well, you had to go to college to learn programming or adapt to these new technologies, because you only had access to those information in college or in those classrooms. But these days, there are really good programs for even on YouTube that you can follow through, that you can upgrade your skills in terms of IT and all this stuff. And even the GPTs, I mean, if you take these courses, I mean, you can really get to know the GPT system very well, and you can just harmonize your skills with those new technologies. So I think you should definitely look into those new skills. And I mean, like GPT is a great skill because it's not a skill for just the tech-savvy people. It's just a general engine for common people. So you should really try to adapt to it. And at the same time, well, even like the programmers are not in the lead in this contest, because I mean, programming in general can easily be replaced by AI. And well, when I open up my editor on my computer now, I type 2 or 3 words, then this AI coding system would suggest me saying, "Are you trying to code this?" And I was like, I just typed 2 words and this system knows what I'm trying to code. And I mean, some point in the near future, then the system would just code things that I would just talk and just lay out, say, build me an application that does this and this and this. When that comes, it's not about technology or getting a computer science degree in college. It's about making these new ideas about how to change the society. So I definitely think that you should not be too afraid of the technological issues and to be afraid of the tech-savvy people, because you spend your time studying other things, and I think those can be more essential to, say, designing a new system, because maybe in the near future, coding and the computer programming could be done by all AI. You know, so yeah, I mean, definitely, I'm the person who's getting threatened by the new AI system, because I told you when I opened up my editor, I just type a few words and it would just code the things for me, and that's a threat to me, but not for you, because I mean, and so don't be too afraid, and please go look up in YouTube. And I'm sure you are aware of the GPT system, and it's a really a good opportunity for everyone. So, and for financial advice-wise, please do divest from crypto. Yeah. There are going to be more and more regulatory regimes coming up on it in Korea. So yeah, please do divest or move overseas. Yeah, move your assets to markets overseas. Yeah, that's my advice I can give you.